Hello and good evening. And guess what? It's Breck time. Good evening and welcome to the fourth episode of Breck Time broadcast. And boy, tonight do we have a star-studded panel for you tonight to talk about the Sergeant Audie Murphy Association. So without further ado, we want to get into it. But before I begin, I just want to do a couple quick shout outs because I know that they'll be tuning in to watch. So first, I want to thank my good friends at NCO PD Live and also Freestyle Every Day for Everyone. And last but not least, the Feel Great Leader. Those are three Facebook pages that we simultaneously do at the same time for leader development. So a big shout out to them. So welcome to them and their fans. Thanks for tuning in. And so tonight I've been very excited about tonight's podcast, and it's about the Sergeant Audie Murphy Association. And I'm very passionate about it. And we're going to get into that a little bit. But first, before we begin, I want to tell you a little bit about Audie Murphy, but I'm going to do it in the means of a video. So please stand by and watch your lane.
Shutters and boards cover the windows of the house where we used to live.
Audie Leon Murphy was a legend in his own time, a war hero, movie actor, writer of country and western songs, and poet. His biography read more like fiction than fact. He lived only 46 years, but made a lasting impression on American history. Audie was born on a sharecropper's farm in North Texas on June 20th, 1924. As a boy, he chopped cotton for $1 a day and was noted for his feats of daring do and his accuracy with a gun. He had only 5 years of schooling and was orphaned at age 16. After being refused enlistment during World War II in both the Marines and paratroopers for being too small, 5 foot 5 inches and underweight 110 pounds. He enlisted in the U.S. Army a few days after his 18th birthday. After basic training at Camp Walters, Texas, and advanced training at Fort George G. Meade, Maryland, Audie was sent overseas. He was assigned to the famous 15th Infantry Regiment of the 3rd Infantry Division, where he fought in North Africa, Sicily, Italy, France, and Germany. He earned a battlefield commission for his courage and leadership ability, as well as citations and decorations, including every medal for valor that America gives. He was also awarded 1 Belgian and 3 French medals. Lieutenant Audie Murphy is the highest decorated soldier in American history. Discharged from the Army on September 21st, 1945, Audie went to Hollywood at the invitation of movie star James Cagney. He remains in California for the rest of his life and was closely associated with the movie industry, both as an actor and a producer. He acted in 44 films, starring in 39 of them. His best-known film is To Hell and Back, adapted from the best-selling book of his war experiences by the same name. Most of his movies were westerns. In 1955, Audie Murphy was voted the most popular Western actor in America by the Motion Picture Exhibitors. Audie wrote the lyrics to 16 country and Western songs, the most popular of which was Shutters and Boards, written with Scott Turner in 1962. The song was recorded by over 30 pop singers, including Jerry Wallace, Dean Martin, and Porter Wagner. He was an accomplished poet. Unfortunately, only a few of his poems have survived. In 1950, Audie joined the 36th Infantry Division, T-Patchers, of the Texas National Guard and served with it until 1966. He was a Mason and a Shriner and belonged to several veterans organizations. Audie Murphy was killed in a plane crash on a mountaintop near Roanoke, Virginia on May 28, 1971. Fittingly, his body was recovered 2 days later on Memorial Day.
Well, that's a great video. I think if that didn't give you a little bit of goosebumps, I don't know what would, but it is an honor. And that is why we chose for our last broadcast in May to be about the Sergeant Audie Murphy Association. As you heard at the tail end of that video, here in a few days, we're going to be honoring the passing of Sergeant Leon Murphy on 28 May. And of course, very fitting that his body was found on Memorial Day. So let's get to the panel. And boy, am I excited to introduce them to you, and then I'll let them tell you a little bit about themselves. So let me go ahead and introduce the panel. First, all the way from Fort Stewart, Georgia, Master Sergeant Bret Anderson, Rock of the Marne. Thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to hearing about you, especially with Fort Stewart being the home of Audie Murphy. And real quick, while you just no pressure, popped it up. Sergeant Major Rebecca Myers, the Garrison CSM out of Fort Stewart, is on the net. She's watching, Sergeant Anderson. All right, next I'd like to introduce my Sergeant Audie Murphy president, Sergeant First Class Desiree Hunt from Fort Leonard, Missouri, home of the military, police, engineer, and chemical, and also the transportation, Marine Corps, Navy, and Marines, and a bunch of other stuff. Thanks, Sergeant Hunt, for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. And last but not least, from my second hometown, Staff Sergeant Matthew Oliver from Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. And again, thank you all for being on the panel tonight. And the comments are flowing in already. So it's going to be for a great evening. But real quick, before I get into personal introductions, no, actually, you know what? Let's do personal introductions and I'll tell my story after. So Sergeant Anderson, please tell us a little bit about yourself and what your program is about. Anything else you'd like us to know. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Good evening, and thank you for having me, Sergeant Major. I'm Master Sergeant Bret Anderson. I am a dog-faced soldier. Yes, I'm part of 3ID with many others, where Audie Murphy served in the 15th Infantry Regiment. Thankfully, we still have the 315 Infantry Regiment with a great museum of artifacts from Audie Murphy's service around here at Fort Stewart. We have a great, unique installation down here with Fort Stewart and Hunter Army Airfield with some Rangers, some 3ID, some National Guard training elements, and a big gamut of great professional NCOs to work with. So if you're ever down in the Fort Stewart area, drop us a line and come say hello.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And I really do appreciate you volunteering to come on. And especially, as I stated, with Audie Murphy, serving in the 3rd Infantry Division and earning all his stuff there, it's kind of fitting that it's kind of his home there. So thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Okay, over to you, Sergeant First Class Hunt.
Good evening, Sergeant Major. It's a pleasure to be on here tonight. I, as you know, am your SAMA Ozark Region Chapter President, and we represent all of our ITRO entities on the installation and every NCO on Fort Leonard Wood and Soldier that loves to do community relations, loves to go out and mingle with other associations that are kind-hearted, want to reach out and just make an improvement for our military families as well as the surrounding communities. So we definitely look forward to having this broadcast tonight, Sergeant Major.
All right, great. Thank you very much. But real quick, you're wearing a shirt. Can you kind of show us what it says?
Yes, Sergeant Major. So
there you go. Margaret C. Corbin. We're going to talk about Margaret C. Corbin too tonight. And obviously every installation is different. When I say that, FORSCOM, and then of course in Europe it's different. But we're going to talk about our Spouses Award as well tonight a little bit. So I really appreciate Sergeant Hunt wearing her Margaret C. Corbin shirt tonight, because not only is the Sergeant Audie Murphy Award just as important to our military community, but man, I'm telling you what, we could not do what we do without our military spouses. And the Margaret C. Corbin here in TRADOC, the Dr. Mary Walker in FORSCOM, and then, of course, in Europe as well, those awards as well. So thanks so much, Sergeant First Class Hunt. I know that you'll probably tell people you didn't have a choice, but you did if you can want to say that. No, I'm just joking. No, really, honestly, thank you for taking time out of your busy evening to be with us tonight. All right, over to you, Sergeant Oliver.
Thank you, Sergeant Major. Hello, everybody. I'm Staff Sergeant Oliver from Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. With 31 Echo out here. Our association deals heavily with, we try to balance between giving back to soldiers and giving back to the community. We do a lot of things like, in the community where we're giving back to veterans and a lot of our disabled. Recently, we've been dealing a lot with trying to help mitigate risk with this, whole new pandemic and trying to make sure that we're taking care of our community, making sure that they're not out. We're putting ourselves in the way, to kind of, bring them groceries and things like that so they don't have to get out and do it. And then we try to get back to our soldiers and make sure that we're mentoring the next Sergeant Audie Murphys and the next leaders of tomorrow, so that way they can take our place and do the same thing.
No, that's fantastic. And I tell you, I closely watch what you all do at Fort Leavenworth, obviously kind of being a home away from home. And I will tell you, you guys are definitely getting after it. So, okay, real quick, before we get into the questions, because I'm going to throw the first question over to Sergeant Anderson, but let me just frame it for the audience just a little bit of why this means so much to me. I've been a Sergeant Audie Murphy member since 2001. And I will tell you that my wife will tell you that being a Sergeant Audie Murphy member probably wasn't on my goal list to do at all because I was too busy taking care of my soldiers, taking care of my platoon, doing the things necessary to make sure. And so here's Breckenridge, Sergeant First Class, just got promoted. I'm at Fort Hood. September 11th happens. The world changes. We end up on the gates at Fort Hood. And if anybody's been to Fort Hood, you know that there's, like 100 of them. And I'll never forget, we were working, especially the platoon sergeants, because we were counting ammo before and after shift and everything else and 12-hour shifts. And it was ending up to be about a 16, 17-hour day. As a matter of fact, I think if I remember correctly, I used to sleep in the platoon office. Anyway, I remember, never forget, that I was at a TCP delivering hot coffee and soup to my soldiers at one of the ACPs. And as I was there, my battalion sergeant major pulls up, Sergeant Major Stanley Staten, a great friend of mine and a mentor. And he pulls up and we're talking and he getting the brief and doing all those things. And then he finally looks at me and says, "Hey, Breckenridge, when are you going to the Audie Murphy board?" And I said, "Well, Sergeant Major," I said, I don't know. I've been very busy. I don't have time. And he said, whoa, hold on, stop. That wasn't a question. He said, "When are you going to the board?" And I looked him dead in the eye, said, "To the next board, Sergeant Major." He goes, "Exactly. Great job. Well done." And I did. I went to the next board and I committed myself because I knew that if my sergeant major asked me that way and basically was saying, "You deserve to be," because that's what he was basically saying, that I should be a part of this association, this club. And I said, I'm not going to let him down. And no matter we had 16, 17-hour days, I studied when I could. I got my uniform prepped. And if anybody knows Command Sergeant Major retired Joe Gainey, who was the 3-Corps CSM, you all know that when you walked into his board, you better be squared away or you're getting your butt thrown out. And I went to the board and I was selected. And it has been one of the greatest honors that I have accomplished, next to marrying my wife and having my beautiful daughter, Sydney, who, by the way, just had her 19th birthday. So happy birthday, Sydney. And by the way, Carolyn, it's your birthday tomorrow. So happy birthday to you. I'm good to go now. I won't get in trouble. That was the plug that I had to remember, Sergeant Hunt. But I'll never forget that day. And it meant a lot to me. And I promised myself this, that as long as I was in a leadership position, as long as I could give back to my Army, I was going to do the same thing and find those NCOs out there who might not think they deserve it, might not think they have enough time, might not think they are even worthy. But I believe in them, and I believe that they represent what the association is about. And that's why I love the program that we have here on Leonard Wood. It's not better than any other program on any other installation. We do our thing, and I'm sure other installations do their thing as well. The point is, I'm passionate about it, and that's why I wanted to assemble this panel in May in honor of the passing of Leon Murphy, one of the greatest war heroes in our history. So, with that being said, Sergeant Anderson, I think I queued you up perfectly. Tell us, home of Audie Murphy, 3rd Infantry Division, right? That's his patch, Rock of the Marne. Tell us, who was Audie Murphy?
Hey, great intro, Sergeant Major. I appreciate it. And just for the crowd, I'm the opposite end of the spectrum. I was probably one of the first E8s to go through the board. I was a young paratrooper way back in the day, and I never got my chance, but I made sure to get my jump master wings and did that for me. When I got to 3rd Infantry Division, I looked around, and one of my good battle buddies in here, First Sergeant John Atkinson, and I saw a standard of people who just wanted to be better, build an NCO corps that was strong as we've always been, and being part of the Audie Murphy Club was part of that. So who was Audie Murphy? Obviously, the bio tells you a lot of stuff. The bio's got some wrong things in it. He was actually not 18 when he joined the Army. He was 17. He was a middle kid out in Texas. Not a lot going on. There's a war going on, and he decided to go over and serve his country. His sister forged a birth certificate for him so he could get in a little early. He showed up ready to go to war and just wanted to be part of the team. He was not hungry for leadership. He was not hungry for glory. He just wanted to do his part in the fight. I pulled up his citation for his Distinguished Service Cross, and just reading it kind of encapsulates what he is. The fact that the 15th Infantry was able to burst out from the Riviera beachhead with such swiftness was due to the large part to the presence in the landing parties of men like Second Lieutenant, then Staff Sergeant Audie Leon Murphy. Without waiting on reinforcements, without considering the personal hazard, he charged a German hill strong point alone, killed, wounded, captured the hostile force of 22 Germans, and knocked out a machine gun, enabling those who followed him to advance without pause through the former enemy positions. I read stuff like that, and that just encapsulates Sergeant Audie Murphy. He did not wait for the staff to do their job and come up behind him with some more beans and bullets. He did not wait for a new battle plan from his commander. He saw what had happened, and he moved to a point of friction, and he absolutely engaged with targets. Then he came out of the Army. A lot of people think that Sergeant Audie Murphy was not the best character for us to build our corps around. When he came out of the Army, he was homeless for a little while until he went to Hollywood and started making movies. He struggled. He lived in a gymnasium while he was making movies. His first movies weren't all the best, but he kept at it, and he persevered, and he became a renowned movie star. And what I think is most impressive about that is, with all of the wartime he saw, with the PTSD he had, he didn't make nice, happy movies. He threw himself back into the fight to help display the horrors and atrocities that he'd seen. He fought his PTSD on a regular basis, and that led to some of his coping mechanisms. Yes, he gambled. Yes, he had a drug problem, which he locked himself in a hotel when he identified he had a dependency on his sleeping pills. Locked himself in a hotel for a week, cleaned himself up. Sounds like the ideal NCO. We all make mistakes as humans. Audie Leon Murphy set the example for just engaging with those problems, finding a way through those problems, and coming out of it. As he died, he was pursuing the cause of making sure that battlefield fatigue and the 1,000-yard stare were actually addressed, and that the government took care of soldiers long after the war. On his plane trip that he actually died on, he was traveling to another meeting to help make sure that the Congress took care of soldiers with what we now call PTSD. So a lot of people want to chime in on some of his mistakes. I think he was absolutely perfectly human. He, with all of his human flaws, he still found a way to charge machine gun nests over and over again, make sure his soldiers were safe, and make sure that they could accomplish the mission. So to me, in a nutshell, that's who Audie Murphy was. He was the ideal, just middle grade, mid-range leader. He wasn't the sergeant major on the hill with the guide on. He wasn't the private in the foxhole taking orders. He was the NCO on the battlefield, just charging the machine gun nest.
Wow. Sergeant Anderson, that was great. Thank you so much. I don't think I could do it any better than that. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right. So let me get into the next question. This question is going to be for everyone. And I'm going to start off with Sergeant Oliver, since you're down right below me. Can you please tell us what the program is all about, and what does it mean to you?
Absolutely, Sergeant Major. So for me, right, I know, we have a massive armed force, and, you have a lot of non-commissioned officers, soldiers out there that are grinding every day. I know for me, my story was somewhat similar. I told my first sergeant Schweitzer, shout out if you're listening. I told my first sergeant what my goal was. Shared it with my battle buddy, Sergeant First Class Sibley, that this was one of my goals. But to me, it was more, I just stepped in as a staff sergeant, platoon sergeant, and I was focused on other things. And it was one of my goals. I saw that as like a long-term, like this is something way in the future that I can see that I could want to get, but nothing close to my vision. So I was just grinding and doing my thing as hard as I could. And, my first sergeant saw that, and he said, when the board was coming up, it was kind of like the same thing. Like, when are you going to the board? Like, well, I'm going to study for it for a couple months or whatever. And whatever. And then he's like, no, like, when are you going to the board? Like, next one. All right, well, there we are. And so for me, the program is about recognizing those non-commissioned officers that are grinding every day, day in and day out, not looking for recognition, but that need their recognition to get that platform. It's to recognize them for their leadership abilities and how they take care of their soldiers and how they give back to everyone else without question and without all those things. And then the second portion of it is that the program is about giving them the platform to continue that forward. So you don't just get in the program, receive an award, and then, all right, well, cool, now I'm at the top and I'm done. It's kind of that bridge gap. Now I have to even go further and farther, faster than I was before, because now I'm on a platform that speaks volumes to everyone. I mean, before I was a squad leader or, platoon sergeant sitting down there that I didn't even think Sergeant Major even knew who I was. And then now I'm, up here with Command Sergeant Major Breckenridge. I know quite a few people and so to me, it's about, the program is about recognizing those non-commissioned officers and boosting them further, Sergeant Major.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for that. That's awesome. And I really appreciate that honest candor and honest feedback. So thanks very much. And it's very inspiring too, from a young staff sergeant like yourself, who's getting at after every day, being a platoon sergeant, taking care of your soldiers. It's really inspiring. And to me, that is what I believe in. As a 31-year sergeant major, that's what I believe the Sergeant Audie Murphy Association is about. I could never be like Audie Murphy, never. But if we can do those things to take care of our soldiers and their families and the unit and the mission, that's what it's all about. So that's very inspiring. Thanks, Sergeant Oliver. Appreciate that. All right, over to you, Sergeant Hunt, please.
Hey, Sergeant Major. So the association to me is a platform to help make leaders into mentors. As I have a theory, and I can thank Sergeant First Class O.C. Connor, Sergeant Major Retired Frank the Tank Ziffer, Sergeant First Class Charles Robinson, some of my early on mentors throughout my career, who said that not everybody can be a mentor, but anybody could be a leader. And for me, the transition in the association is helping the leaders become those mentors. As Sergeant Oliver stated, we need to rely on our soldiers to one day take our positions. And we can't do that if all we're doing is barking orders, but we're not showing them a path on how to resource, how to take care of others, who they can talk to, and how to talk to people. And that's kind of within the panel of the board. And to me, the association is there not just to build the community relations aspect of what is behind giving back, but to help build our partnership with our own soldiers, to get them out of that small box that they think that they're in and away from electronics, and get into what it is to be a mentor, and not just giving, okay, this is where you need to be, this is the time you need to be in the uniform. Explain to them. Sometimes they need that why factor, but they're not taught how to give that why factor. And some of our members are able to help assist them with that. And that is what is going to drive and push our soldiers to become the mentors that we need in the Army to take our position so we can retire and live on with our life and go on about our glory days in the Army, and then come back in future podcasts and be participants as well. So that's what it is to me, and that's what the association does, Sergeant Major.
All right, great. Thanks. Over to you, Sergeant Anderson. What is the program all about, and tell us what it means to you?
Well, what it means to me, Sergeant Major, is I think back to my PLDC days. I'm dating myself. When I was a young E5, that was my first chance to see other branches, other MOSs, and get to know other peers. Kind of hit my same struggles on how to take care of soldiers. I haven't seen anything like that until I found the Audie Murphy Club. In the Audie Murphy Association, I have brothers that are in the IG, brothers that are in family advocacy, brothers and sisters that are in other staff positions, and it's a network of people that I can use when I'm struggling on ways to take care of a soldier, or that I can help if I find someone who needs anything I can offer. So the Audie Murphy Association is kind of like that brother sisterhood of NCOs who truly care and want to give back. What the association means to me is a way in which to give back. Down here at Fort Stewart, we kind of build ours on 3 different things. One is obviously mentoring NCOs. We work closely with our AUSA chapter here in the area. They bring in big name speakers. Sergeant Major of the Army retired Daly came down before COVID, and we had a 2-day event with him. And we get to just bring in those really seasoned senior sergeants majors and help our junior NCOs get some one-on-one time with them. And then another pillar we have is giving back to our community. We like to fundraise and give scholarships to our JROTC programs. And then we also like to teach the next round of not just NCOs, but soldiers. We work with our JROTC programs. We grade their drill and ceremonies. And so it really is a venue for which we can build our community, because we are all citizens of the communities in our installation. We can give back to that community and hopefully put a good taste in those young kids' minds, so they hopefully join the Army and take over the job from me. And then a way to just mentor those that are in. So that's what the association means to me, Sergeant Major.
Okay, great, thanks. And before we move on, there's the questions are piling on, so we're going to go ahead and deviate to that real quick. And so this first one popped up, and I'm gonna go ahead and answer this one real quick. So Jeff Cooper asked what kind of volunteer opportunities, and Jeff, I'm gonna ask for you to be patient. We're going to get to that. It's going to be towards the tail end of the podcast, but we're going to get to it, and we're going to allow each of the panel members to talk about what are the things that they do for their local Audie Murphy Association and their community. So we're going to get to that question right there. So, but I have a question from the 40th MP Battalion, and this is kind of a big one, and I'm going to allow one of you. So I'll let you digest that question for a second. Why is the club important to our to our NCO Corps? And does anybody want to take a stab at that? I'm
more than willing to jump in there.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think it just chimes into what I said. Iron sharpens iron. We need good NCOs to make other good NCOs better. If I'm a large fish in a small pond, then I'm not going to grow. But like I said, when I came to third ID, I looked left, I looked right to see what the standard of excellence was, and I saw a couple of my brothers I really looked up to, and they wore medallions, and so I figured that's what I had to do to be a great NCO in this division at least. And I know it ranges all over the place, but for the NCO Corps, it really just sets a standard for people who want to do more, put themselves out there in front of a board, sometimes get completely annihilated by a board, and go back 6 months later and try it again until you do it right. Over.
Go ahead, Oliver.
I like to say something, Sergeant Major. So I think another piece to it that is really great for the NCO Corps is because I remember when my Command Sergeant Major came in, one of the first things he said was, he said there's a saying that is kind of old time for the NCO Corps. If you want to hide something from an NCO, you put it in a regulation. And so that hit home to me, and it made me fired up and want to read and make sure that I didn't want to be that NCO that did that. And then when I started the Audie Murphy process, I realized it's not just about reading them, but you got to become an extreme expert at just about as much as you humanly possibly can. And I went through this grueling process of learning everything, but at the end of it, I become that person that knows everything. And so, that benefits the soldiers who are under us. So as an NCO Corps, if, Audie Murphy leads the way in that, but if we can relay that to everyone and they're all reading those regulations and they're all understanding Army doctrine, they're all understanding where can they find the, all these Army programs. I mean, I found so much information out that just well over benefited my soldiers that I should have known already. And so I think that the Audie Murphy Club and the Audie Murphy process, that's extremely important to us because that's what it did for me. And I think that should be what we now, knowing what we know, pass it back to them and help them understand why that's so important and what the difference was before I started and now knowledge-wise.
Wow, very powerful. Thank you so much for that. That was great. Sergeant Hunt?
Sergeant Major, I think that the club and the association together helps create a NCO Corps that is more well-rounded, more mature, and more resourceful for our soldiers. Here, for example, we make sure that our candidates go through a terrain walk of all the resources on the installation. To me, and this is just an opinion, you can't really be a good NCO if you don't know how to take care of your soldiers, if you don't know how to resource, if you don't know what regulation covers A, B, and C, and you don't even know where to find those, the process makes you dive deep into those regulations that maybe you knew nothing about, how to run a DA6, the BOSS program. What is the BOSS program? Some soldiers don't even know it to this day. And so it just makes you get into those resources, and it gives you that face-to-face with those resource personnel, and you make that good contact with them. For NCOs, that one-on-one contact with somebody at a resource, your ACS building, your finance office, SUDC, ASAP, etc., is phenomenal. And if you don't have those those resources, you don't understand them, you can't link to the NCO Corps. You're not going to be as successful as an NCO without knowing how to do your part and take care of your soldiers.
Nope, that's great. Great. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Thank you. So great way to answer that question for all of you. Thank you so much for taking that question on. And I'm going to go to another one real quick. And this one kind of hits home to me. And I'm going to go ahead and take this one to start off with, and then I'll allow each of you a quick second to chime in. But Michael Dwindle, it sounds like he's a little frustrated, about he's done 2 boards. Not sure what the ridiculed on social media by civilians over it is, but at the end of the day, he's asking, should he strive for the 3rd? And I say, heck yeah. Don't quit. First of all, if you believe that you should be a part of this association, it's not about wearing a medallion. It's not about getting it and then not doing anything. It's about making a commitment to be better than you were the day before, and striving every day to be that NCO that every soldier in the Army deserves. Then don't stop. I have been on boards. I have been presidents of boards. I have been members of boards, and I have seen people get shot down as soon as they walked in, sent out. But I've seen people come back. I think the record was in Germany for the Sergeant Morales club. I think there was a record. Actually, no, I think it was actually here on Fort Leonard Wood. One of our members, 5 times he went to the board. And on his 5th one, he finally got it. And that's perseverance. That's a do not quit attitude. And I will tell you what, Sergeant Major Ferguson, you know who I'm talking about. And I'll tell you what, I'd have that NCO in my corner any day, because that's an NCO that don't quit. So, Sergeant Hunt, do you want to chime in on this question real quick to Michael and give him any feedback?
Yes, Sergeant Major, thank you. So, Michael, don't sweat on having to go back once, twice, 3 times, however many times. If you have the determination and you have the leadership that has your back in terms of pushing you forward and persevering through whatever hiccups you have at the board, go for it. I was not a first-time go myself. I went through twice, and the first time I was a sergeant, and in the middle of my process was promoted to a staff sergeant. And one of the things that came out was they didn't think I had enough experience because I had just gotten promoted to a staff sergeant, even though I was in the midst of the board. So they stopped me and pushed me through and said, okay, but let's see if you have the guts to come back next time. And for me, that was more of a challenge. And you just have to push forward. Take all of the criticism that the board members give you, the constructive criticism, mind you, that the board members give you, as well as any of the members that sit in the board that are taking notes. Take those in. Don't sweat over anything. Find your confidence. All you're doing is you're talking through situations on how to help soldiers. These are leaders that are sitting in front of you that have done the same thing, not just in a board setting, in real life. I can't tell you how many times I've come to Sergeant Major Breckenridge with an issue, whether it's personal or work related. I'm talking to him about a situation. You're doing no different in a board setting. It might be a little bit more nerve-wracking, especially you don't know the situation at hand, but just relax, calm down, and you will get through it. We are all behind you. Don't ever have a problem with having to go through once or twice.
Okay, great. Thanks. To you, Sergeant Anderson.
Yeah, I'd say honestly, studying for the board, I think, was the best exercise as a leader I ever did. It didn't even matter to me what outcome I had at the board. I took 2 weeks of leave, and I actually opened up those regs where they keep hiding things. I went around the installation, and I met all the people who were supposed to help me take care of my soldiers. So the outcome of the board, I don't think is the point. I think the point is how hard you study to be a better NCO, and eventually the board will see that you have put in your time and you are that caliber of NCO. Take their feedback with thick skin. If they say you need more responsibility, more soldiers, go back, get more responsibility, get more soldiers. If they say you need to study more, then go study more. Regardless of the tone of the conversation in a board, the intent is to make a solid NCO corps. So if you go back 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, I think you're just making yourself a better NCO each time.
No, that's perfectly said, because I think Sergeant Oliver said it earlier. This process of him going through this board and being selected just made him a better NCO, and it continues to make him a better NCO. So anyway, over to you, Sergeant Oliver. What advice do you have for Michael Dwindle about going back to the board again for his 3rd time?
Well, Sergeant Major, I think it's a perfect example because I went to my first, for the first board before installation at the battalion. I went 4 times. So, you know what I mean? If you're going to, 2 times to me, I was only halfway there. And the second time, Sergeant Major kicked me out because of a minor detail that I missed that I should have known as a non-commissioned officer, which didn't hurt my feelings at all. I went out going, thinking to myself like, well, now I'm not going to come back not knowing that, you know what I mean? And just drove me even farther to learn and know more. Just wasn't like an embarrassment. I didn't feel like he was demeaning me, but 4 times later, I got to go, went to installation and killed it. And so, you're going to fail. Just like he talked about in the introductions, Audie Murphy definitely had multiple failures, but overcame them. You can't, most of the time you're not going to be successful without some form of failures. That's just part of what it is. Keep going. Always.
Yep. That's
8 times, do it.
That's what I say. And I will tell you, if you get rejected, you come back even stronger. And all it's going to do is make you a better NCO in the end of the day. So, all right, great. Thanks, panel members, for that. I really appreciate it. All right, real quick, we're going to throw this question to Sergeant Hunt. I believe Leo Espinoza is on Fort Leonard, I would assume. He's potentially maybe a candidate because he's asking me and you specifically about what can he do to participate in meetings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer this question real quick. Espinoza, email Sergeant Hunt, and we're going to get something out. We got apps and email, and we'll get some meetings going on. Just because we're in COVID doesn't mean what we're doing has stopped. We're just having to find different ways to do certain things. So get in contact with Sergeant Hunt, and she's going to square you away. I positively guarantee you she will do that. All right, real quick. So let me get to the regulation real quick, because obviously we know that there's a TRADOC regulation and a FORSCOM regulation. And both of those are important to know, because depending on what type of unit you're in, to prepare to packets, et cetera, requirements might be different. So real quick to Sergeant Hunt, tell us what is tell us what the regulation is for TRADOC, and then what's maybe a few specific things about it if you can.
Yes, Sergeant Major. So the regulation for TRADOC is going to be TRADOC Regulation 600-14. It is dated 1 February 1999, but the change to is what is coming, what you need to look at, and that is dated 14 May 2012. and it's 6 pages, so it's not long at all. And it gives a breakdown of requirements for each level, so the battalion and the brigade, along with the installation. It gives examples of what your recommendation packet should look like, to include an example score sheet, so you know what to expect once you get to the installation level. Now, this is just a guideline, and I do have a copy of the guideline. So this is just a guideline of what a score sheet could look like at the installation level. Now, your MOIs would dictate, of course, and have those changes. It does have the Audie Murphy bio in it as well. So if you're trying to figure out where to find the exact bio that you need to look at for TRADOC, look in TRADOC Regulation 600-14. The correct bio is in there.
Okay, great. Thanks for that rundown. Appreciate it. And to you, Sergeant Anderson, for our FORSCOM regulation info.
Yeah, our FORSCOM regulation is going to be FORSCOM Regulation 600-80-1. They just put out a RAR to it last March of 19, updating the weapons and PT standards. The bio that Sergeant Hunt chimed on there, that's the biggest difference between the two regulations. So if you do start studying for a board, whether it be TRADOC or FORSCOM, make sure you're studying the right bio. There's a couple words in there that are different between the two. But some of the bigger changes that came out for FORSCOM was you need a 90-90-90 in the APFT events. I'm actually running a board second week in June. I talked to the FORSCOM G1. They are still accepting with Army policy the last current APFT on record, as long as it met those 90-90-90s. Today, the Army sent out a Frago saying that we can run APFTs. We just have to do the social distancing. You're allowed to hook your feet now. And so our board process is changing a little bit to stay in line with Army policy. But FORSCOM Regulation 600-80-1 would be the regulation.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, I have a question that's popped up, and I'll start with Sergeant Oliver. It's from First Sergeant Jinks. He asks, what is your message to motivate Sergeant Audie Murphy Association members that are not actively serving in their local chapters? What say you?
Well, we definitely struggle with that some here as well. You know, my pitch to them often is trying to find out what motivated them in the first place. I mean, obviously they were, nominated at some point, so they were doing great things. They had a love for the Army. They had a love for soldiers. And the Audie Murphy Club is just about giving back more to them. So it really shouldn't be much more than what you're doing now if you're, truly giving back to all your soldiers and doing that. Before I got into the Audie Murphy, I was volunteering and doing, leadership stuff, and you do the same thing in the Audie Murphy Club. So my motivation to them is just trying to find, I would, talk to them and figure out what it was that motivated them and get them to come, try to build that team camaraderie where we can, expand our umbrella. I mean, the more people we have, the more we can do, and the more we can do with, less energy, I guess. I don't know how the right way to word it, but that would be kind of my message to them. Sorry, Major.
No, it's great. I always talk about that too, and Sergeant Hunt knows this. I talk about it's not about the numbers, but at the end of the day, you got to be a part of something bigger than yourselves. So with that, I'll go ahead and let Sergeant Hunt answer that question.
Yes, our Major. So one of the things that we bring up, and when we find out service members come to Fort Leonard Wood and they're SAMA members but are not really active, or we hear through the SAMA channels that somebody is here that's not active, is have you actually come to a meeting? Have you come to one of our events? Do you know who we are and what our association here at the local level is all about? If not, we ask that they come to a meeting or they come to our events and find out who we are. Because if they had a bad experience or didn't like the way one chapter was run, etc., that doesn't mean that they're all run the same. And we're not the same individuals. We're not the same council members that run chapters. We're all different. We try to pull everybody in and get their 2 cents in to work events, to function with the communities, etc. So my biggest thing is if it has to do with a concern or an issue or a timing, we have events and we have meetings. We have new apps that Sergeant Major had mentioned before. Fort Leonard Wood, if you're curious, get on Slack. Send us your email. Your personal email will get you on Slack. You can see all of our calendars, and come join us so we can show you who we are and what it's all about. And I guarantee you that you will not want to miss our meetings and our partnerships with other associations. We're a great network team, and that's what we like to utilize. That's who we are, and that's what's going to build us. And that's what we try to pitch to other members that are not as active is, do you know what resources you have available to you to help your soldiers, to help your cadre, to help your ops sergeant improve on an SAV that he's not familiar with, or somebody in physical security? Oh, but the SAMA member runs the brigade's physical security, stuff like that. It's bringing people together, as previously stated, and it's a good network. And sometimes that's just the motivation that they need to even get involved with the community as well, Sergeant Major.
Well said. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you. Sergeant Anderson, do you?
Yeah, this one is hard for me to struggle with because we have so many units doing so many great, wonderful things. We've got a unit in Poland, a unit getting ready for Korea, units out and training all the time here at 3ID. And so I found the secret is to provide lots of small opportunities for members individually to go and help the community. I've got one Audie Murphy battle buddy. He's a first sergeant of one of our med companies, and he loves going out to run STEM classes with his soldiers for the local high schools. And I try to throw a couple other members in there when he goes. I've got other members that will go out and teach JRTC, teach the marching bands, teach the communities. I've got guys that love to just put together white papers on philosophical leadership ideas, and we sit around the horn and talk about that stuff. So while I haven't cracked the code on having massive huge golf tournaments with everything we have going on down here at Fort Stewart, I find that a lot of little opportunities for each member to give back in their own ways is about the best way I can get people involved down here.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. All right, real quick, before we get into the next topic, because this is the one big one that I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to allow each of you to talk and answer the question and try to be as brief as we can because we got so much more to cover, and boy, do we have the questions flowing in. But real quick, I wanted to throw this one up there because, heck yeah, I'm all about girl power, right? And so Lieutenant Colonel Sullivan, who is a battalion commander, is asking Sergeant Hunt, hey, great comment, Sergeant Hunt. How many females are in the association? Well, as well, you can't answer across the United States. But how about here at Fort Leonard Wood? How many females we got in our association? Sergeant Hunt.
Thank you. Sorry. We have roughly 16 females that are very much active within the association that are also part of other associations. And that's how, again, we internetwork. I am proud to say that there has been at least 2 females that have gone through at every single board since I've been the president here the last 18 months. And I'm very proud of my sisters in arms, at least to say, and we're a fighting force and we're coming out there just as much as the males are, and we're ready for it. And there's nothing going to stop us. So we're pushing through.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that Sergeant Anderson and Sergeant Oliver, you guys could say the same thing. I just had to throw that up there because Colonel Sullivan is a battalion commander here on Fort Leonard Wood, and she knows all the great things that we do. And she's a big supporter with her battalion and, of course, the entire installation. So, okay, great. All right. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this whole thing. And this is the one that I know we were going to spend a little bit of time on. But for someone out there who has been thinking about it, who is interested, or maybe not, but is curious, let's talk about the process from start to finish. And I know it's like a 6-month process, maybe even more. And we're not going to drag it out that far, but quickly, if you can, in your minds, in your thought process, from building the packet to going to the first board to getting through the final selection board, what is that process that you remember from yours and maybe some of the boards that you do now? And I'm going to throw this one to Sergeant Anderson first, and then I'll go to Hunt and Oliver after that. So, Sergeant Anderson, you want to take a stab at that?
Absolutely, Sergeant. My process was, I don't think it was unique at all. I sat down on my initial board. I was a first sergeant of the MI company, And it was my battalion sergeant major who was a member, another 2 senior NCOs that were members, and they basically just grilled me around the table at lunchtime to figure out if I had what it took. That was basically giving my battalion sergeant major the knowledge to know he could recommend me, and then I went up to a brigade board, and that's where the formalities started. At the brigade board, I took an APFT. I had to score all my best events. I trained up for it. Like I said, I took 2 weeks of leave just to study for everything. And this was me as a first sergeant, who theoretically first sergeants know everything, but we don't. We have to learn and remember again every day. But this was a great experience for me. I went to my brigade board, and my brigade sergeant major is the epitome of armor brigade sergeant's major. He's very clean cut, very disciplined, and very intense to stand in front of and get grilled some questions. And then once I left the brigade level, all my packet went up, and a lot of it was on attention to detail. Almost every step of the way is attention to detail. Is your packet put together in the right order? Do you have the right signatures? If you're not going to put passion into making sure that your packet is squared away, following the reg, and looks good, then you may not have what it takes. Being an Audie Murphy member means that you can have the attention to detail in your uniform and your regulations and your packets and your administration of soldiers. So a lot of it was making sure the packet was straight. And then when you go up to the division board here at 3ID, we do it over 2 days, and we've actually been talking about expanding that to a 3-day event. So we include both an APFT and an ACFT. Our NCO Academy out here recently ran such an event where they ran an APFT on a Monday, did some hands-on on a Tuesday, and then an ACFT on a Wednesday, and their candidates actually performed surprisingly well. But right now it's just a 2-day event. We run an APFT, and then we have hands-on lanes. It's mystery lanes. Audie Murphy members from around the installation come out. We put together certain lanes. Our division sergeant major is big on the Big 12 basic NCO capabilities. Do you know how to do a 9-line? Do you know your comms? Do you know your weapon? Can you push an op order to a platoon for a range day? The things that a lot of NCOs really aren't doing around the Army, but it's still in our wheelhouse to do, is to publish warnos down to our soldiers. So we have lanes that focus on basic NCO skill sets. And then the next day, usually a brief run with the division sergeant major to get to know you in the morning, and then a long board that day. Here in FORSCOM, we have to have our division sergeant major and then 5 other brigade level CSMs. Stewart Seven's on the net now. She's been gracious enough to sit on a few boards with me. And it's really trying to get to know the candidate. And these are some of the most senior enlisted we have on an installation, who have arguably come across every possible way to take care of a soldier. And they're trying to make sure you know how to take care of a soldier too. So a lot of attention to detail, lots of APFTs, ACFTs, lots of assessment events, lots of just getting to know. Even if you're an E5 or an E8, you're going to get to know everyone in your NCO support channel all the way up to division sergeant major, and they're going to get to know you. So pass or fail, it's one of those things that's going to put you out there, and a lot of people are going to recognize your efforts and your attempts, and they're going to give you feedback along the way. Once you finish all that, then it's just paperwork up to FORSCOM. We've got the process down. FORSCOM is pretty helpful with us. In about 2 weeks, they send everything back, and then you do a great induction ceremony and start supporting the team. One of the biggest things that I've seen in the process that kind of hangs people up, somewhere in the process, a sergeant major will ask, "What have you done for the Sergeant Audie Murphy Association so far?" A lot of people think they need to go to the board, get the medallion, that's all they have to do, but it is a lifestyle. And you don't have to wait to get your ribbon to begin that lifestyle. You can start helping in your community. You can start being a professional developer. And so a lot of sergeant majors, at least one in every board process, is going to ask you that hard question of what have you already done to earn this medallion? And so that's the process here at FORSCOM, sergeant major.
Wow, I like it. And I will tell you, just to let the audience know, every installation is going to be different. Every sergeant major puts their different spin on it, if you want to say that. So I don't want everybody to think that just the way it happens at Stewart is the way it's going to happen across the United States. That's not necessarily true. Everybody does their own thing, but at least it gives you a general consensus. But I heard 2 things from you. Number one, attention to detail, right? That packet, making sure that packet is squared away. It's kind of like a board file. Right, that board file is going to go before, and it's going to get scrutinized by the board members, and you want it to make sure it's squared away. You don't want to be missing ribbons off your ERB, but they're on your uniform. Those type of things. And then the next thing is what have you done? Because if you're just a medallion chaser, then we don't want, that's not what this is about. This is about living up to an expectation. And we're going to get to a question from Sergeant Major Kleinholtz here in a second. So I'm not going to spoil it, but it's about living up to expectations. So, all right, great. Thanks, Sergeant Anderson. Appreciate it. All right, quickly over to you, Sergeant Hunt.
Sergeant Major, so my process, I was in Korea, took 3 days, or I got 3 days notice, just came off a mid-shift, working swings, patrolling. My platoon sergeant was like, hey, you're going to go to the Sergeant Audie Murphy Board and Battalion up in Seoul. So, yeah, let's get in study. And I was like, well, when is it? He goes, well, we travel there in 2 days. And then the board's the next day. I was like, fantastic. And I was like, who's Sergeant Audie Murphy? I had no idea. I just laughed afterwards, and I felt really stupid at the fact that I didn't know who he was. And I was a non-commissioned officer, and it was just something that's never come up with the environment and the leaders that I had. And it took them identifying a skill set or a mannerism or an action that I'd done for me to be nominated by my chain of command to go. And so in 3 days notice, I was up in Yongsan, and not only was I there for the battalion board, but they were like, oh yeah, by the way, we need an NCO to go to the NCO of the quarter board. So after that board, you're going into another board. But that was my quick intro to who Sergeant Audie Murphy was, what the association was, what it's about, etc. So I didn't get to do as much hands-on at that portion. It was kind of rushed. It wasn't until I went to the brigade board that, as Master Sergeant Anderson had stated, the packet. I learned how to put my packet together, what to look for. My platoon sergeant First Class Thomas sat down with me and was very meticulous. And he actually had me scrutinize my own packet in front of him. And as far as our boards here on Fort Leonard with Sergeant Major, our packets we go through are very meticulous as well. We are not as extensive at the battalion or brigade level or even installation level as some of the other installations. We do have 3 phases in TRADOC. The first phase is a unit nomination by the commander. The second phase is a unit board, which is usually held at the battalion level, and then which is usually a day. And then the third phase is the brigade board with the installation board following. With that being said, one of the things that we look for is if your packets aren't correct, how are you expected to come before a panel and give reasoning as to why you should be a member? And so look through those packets. That's what we look for. One of the things that is brought up about our board process is have confidence, be able to speak your mind, say what you mean and mean what you say, and don't go down those rabbit holes that some of the sergeant majors might lead you into in order to get you all riled up during the board process. As far as the installation level, be prepared to answer different scenarios on our installation, know the general policy letters, and basically how and where can you take care of soldiers on the installation, and what resources do you have, and how did you find those? And that's basically our board process in a nutshell.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. By the way, that was a test to make sure you knew what our process was, since I kind of work with you on that. So no, great job. Appreciate that. All right, to see you, Sergeant Oliver.
I appreciate it, Sergeant Major. So I'm not going to hit too much on the process initially. It's essentially the same here on that portion. We have in our packet, we have things like an essay in there, which gets scrutinized. I mean, you're looking at, do you make sense? You have, does it have a good flow? Things like that. When you go through the board process, they're going to gruel you. They're going to, do the same things that those other ones that talked about. I kind of want to hit on, because I saw some comments on people trying to prepare that were confused on maybe where to start and how to do it. I know for us, I know every installation issue is an MOI, telling you exactly what to expect at that board. My advice to you on that piece on preparing, I went from, my first board was in May. So I was notified of the date of the board and got the MOI about a month or so prior. And then that's when I had made the decision to go. So from May to my board was in August, my final one that I got accepted. This process for me started, and obviously it continued to grow. I told you I went 4 times to the middle board. is start with one regulation. You know, the regulations, some of them seem kind of long, but we all know here as adults, like the first half of them is talking about G1 this and whatever. That doesn't matter. Get down to the meat and potatoes and what is it telling you to do, you know, and just read through them. And I would just read them like verbatim. You're not going to remember every line, but I would know the concept. I would know, like, you know, I would gather that information, and I took that one by one. I didn't try to slam a bunch of stuff or study questions. I just read the regulations, just read it. And I would pick stuff out and I'd be like, oh, I never knew that before. And I would just keep going and I would remember that kind of stuff. And then when, you know, and I let that sleep on it. And then a little bit later, maybe a day or two later, I'd read another one. And I would skip all the other G1s and this, that, and the other. And I would read the meat and potato of the regulation. And you know, call the places on post, like the resiliency centers and the, you know, all the places that help soldiers, you know, where you can get the AAR places, the AR loans and stuff. Like all these places, you know, call them, get to know the people, just ask them, talk to them about it. They'll be personal with you and tell you everything they can do for you, and you'll get to know them very well. And then, you know, just keep reading. And if you get to the end and you're like, okay, now I've read them all, what do I do? Go back to number 1 and start reading again. And you're not going to remember everything the first time, but the more you read, I mean, I probably read through the regulations at least 5 or 6 times, each one from April until when I exceeded the board in August alone. I probably read all those regulations and more. Because for me, another thing that kind of helped out is as I would read them and learn that there was a lot of things in there that I didn't know that like blew my mind, it made me want to read more of the regulations. I'm like, well, what am I missing over here then? So that's just for me. That's kind of my piece on how to, you know, prepare for the board, is just read a lot. You know, and take a little bit of extra time, and maybe one day instead of watching a movie or instead of watching a show, just read the regulation. And, you know, and that's kind of my piece on it.
Very good. Thanks. And I'll just add to yours a little bit, because you said it perfectly. One of the things that I'm really passionate about is those that are preparing to go through the process, because it's not just about the board, right? It really is not. It's about the process. So before you do that, if you would just go to every agency on the installation, as you stated, go to the AAR and tell them, hey, I'm a new soldier. How can I get this? Well, what about this? And I'm telling you, those people will help you. And I tell a quick story about an NCO in Germany that I had with the Sergeant Morales club out there, because, you know, I was very proud of our club out there in Germany as well. And for those that are interested, the Sergeant Morales club is you know, very similar to Sergeant Audie Murphy, you know, with the process and stuff like that. It's just named after someone differently. But the ideas of what that NCO is, the one that wears that medallion in front of their formation, is the epitome of what the NCO Corps is about. It's the same. So, but anyway, Philip Sovokol, he's a first sergeant now, and he would tell me all the time about how that set him up for the process, how it made him better by going to the ACS building, going to the AAR building, going to self-help and saying, show me the lending closet. What can you help me with my soldiers if someone shows up here with no pots and pans? Show me the actual storage room where all this stuff is at. And it just helps you comprehend. So when you're in that board and that process, and that sergeant major asks, hey, you got a new soldier that shows up, and it's a young private with 3 kids and a spouse and has nothing to their name, how are you going to get them to even cook dinner? What are you going to do? Well, it's easy, sergeant major. I'll take them over to the lending closet, because, you know, I've been there, and they've got, you know, hundreds of pots and pans and silverware and glasses and cups and strainers and juicers, and we can sign it all for them. And I guarantee you that sergeant major is going to say, okay, next question, and move on, because you're going to demonstrate that you know what it takes to take care of soldiers. So, all right, great. Hey, thanks for that. I really appreciate that on the process. All right, real quick, I want to go to Sergeant Anderson. I'm going to throw this question out. This is from Sergeant Major Kleinholtz, and you take a stab at the question. It's, what is more challenging, going through the process or living up to the expectations once inducted? And he is an Audie Murphy since 1997. That's what that 97 means. Way to throw that plug in there, Greg.
I don't think anyone knows what it means to live up to it until you go through the process. It's one of those things, you train for the board, and then you don't stop training. I have learned now that every installation I go to, I need to take that 2-week period to go around and see all those facilities and see what resources are available, because every installation is different. Training up for the board, I would say, is very hard, but it shows you what you need to do for the rest of your career. And those NCOs that do that are some of the greats that a lot of people remember have a huge effect on soldiers' lives. There are absolutely those who trained up super hard for the board, got their medallion, and rolled on to the next formal, happy with what they won. And not to say they're bad NCOs, but I think they are living down all the hard work that they put into the board to earn that association membership in the first place. If you're going to put that much effort into proving you're a solid NCO, then why would you ever stop?
Yep. No, great. Thanks. Appreciate that. Okay, real quick, I'm going to head to the next topic that I wanted to talk about. And if you guys don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and knock it out real quick so we can move to the next one. And I want to really quickly talk about, for the ForceCom, it's the Dr. Mary Walker Award. And for the TRADOC, it's the Margaret C. Corbin. And for those in Europe, it is the Dr. Mary Walker as well. And so what is that? Well, it's a spouse award. And so both of those ladies, Dr. Mary Walker and Margaret C. Corbin, have history with the military dating back to the Civil War. And so if you read their stories and read their bios about what they do, it epitomizes what a military spouse is. So for instance, really quick about Margaret C. Corbin. Margaret C. Corbin was a spouse. Her husband was a cannoneer during the Civil War. He was injured and was ultimately killed in battle. And she jumped up and assisted the cannon crew with helping fire the cannon to keep it going, to keep the fighting going. And if it wasn't for her, they could have probably lost that portion of the battle. And she was ultimately wounded. And she was one of the first females, if not the first female, to be awarded a lifetime pension from the U.S. government for her injuries. But I tell you all that because a lot of folks don't utilize it. I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but there are some maybe that don't understand what the award is about. So I'm going to tell you what we do here on Fort Leonard Wood. We're very passionate about recognizing our military spouses on Fort Leonard Wood. And to date, and again, I'm not throwing anybody previous leadership under the bus. I'm just saying what we've done is we've been able to recognize those family members by picking them out from the first sergeant's wife, who was recently selected to be the volunteer of the year for Fort Leonard Wood. Well, she's a perfect candidate for the Dr. Margaret C. Corbin Award, or Margaret C. Corbin Award, So it's that type of award for those spouses that give back to our community, those spouses that give so much back to not only their soldier, but to soldiers like me and trainees or whoever. It's a way to recognize them. And so quickly with that, I want to segue into just a quick shout out. The other day, I'm very proud of this. Fort Leonard Wood, we did our first virtual social distance Sergeant Audie Murphy and Margaret C. Corbin Award ceremony. And it was different, way different than what we've done in the past. And as most of you know that's around me, know that I'm very passionate about making sure that the ceremony is first class with bands and trumpets and everything else and flags and everything. But unfortunately, during this time, we had to change it up. So we had very limited in the audience, but we streamed it live on Facebook. So if anybody wants to check out the Sergeant Audie Murphy Ozark Region chapter page, it's on there. And, which was kind of unique because as it was going on, General Martin leaned over to me and said, "Sergeant Major, that's pretty special." What she was meaning was, since we have to socially distance and we didn't want masks or face coverings to be in the way, we just allowed the spouse to do everything. So the spouses got to pin the RCOM on the NCO, got to put the medallion over the NCO's head, and got to present the certificate signed by General Funk and Sergeant Major Gooden. And so, yeah, it was different. Normally it's the CG and I, doing it, but it was different and it was unique, and we were able to do that. So we recognized our great NCOs. But the point of the whole story is we got to recognize 3 amazing Army spouses. and not because of, you know, how many hours they volunteered. It's not about hours and stuff like that. It's about what did they give back to the community? What have they given to the community all these years? And to see people like Heather Klein and Kathy Sheffield and Veronica Kramer be awarded the Margaret C. Corbin Award, it just brought joy to my heart because they give back so much to our community. And I know that at Fort Stewart and Fort Leavenworth, you all have the same thing. I just challenge you, if you're a Sergeant Audie Murphy president or vice president or something, and maybe you're not doing as much as maybe you could be, go talk to your senior Sergeant Audie Murphy advisor, your installation sergeant major, and say, hey, can we up our game on these awards for our spouses? Because they're out there. There's no doubt about it. I told my commanding general the other day, I said, we have hundreds of Sergeant Audie Murphy NCOs in our formation. We just got to get them up there to the stage. That's all we got to do because they're out there and they deserve to be a part of it. And the same thing with our spouses. So anyway, okay, enough on that. All right, we're going to go ahead and jump into one of my favorite topics is what does the Sergeant Audie Murphy Club or association in your installation do for your local community and the installation? But what I want you also to, NCOs, to talk about is talk about how you cross level with other organizations like BOSS or VFW or the AUSA. So I'm going to go ahead and hand the mic over first to Sergeant Oliver, and then I'll give it to Sergeant Hunt, and then I'll close this question out with Sergeant Anderson. But to you, Sergeant Oliver, go ahead.
Thank you, Sergeant Major. I'll be kind of quick. So we definitely partner with other ones. Our main partnership is with AUSA. We have amazing reps that come out with us. Judy Bauer, her husband, John. They come out and they support us on everything that we do. I mean, I just got to call them any time of day. They're helping us. We volunteer in the community quite a bit. We volunteer with. We clean up a trail at the VA hospital where the veterans, the old disabled veterans, they go out and walk. It's kind of like their relaxation. So we maintain it. We have the highway cleanup that we typically do. We recently had to stop, but for the most part, we had a program going for a long time where we were delivering meals to elderly who can't come out. So they have a program where we deliver it for them every week, and we had a route that we would take as Audie Murphy members. So we do a lot of community events. We have the curbside pickup that was going on where, we were producing volunteers and gathering those volunteers to, gather groceries for those high-risk personnel or those with deployed family members and delivering them basically to their car from the commissary, doing the shopping for them and then delivering to their car so they didn't have to get out and touch anything or, doing that kind of stuff. And AUSA came out to all of those things and helped us with those. Same thing with BOSS and same thing. Those guys always reach out to us and ask for volunteer opportunities and ask us, we communicate back and forth on what we're doing, and we try to implant ourselves into their organizations as well, so that way we're also giving back to them and helping bridge that gap. And then the second thing that we do for our installation is try to get into other units. Like I'm part of the 40th, but we try to integrate into we have the 31 Bravos that are on post, and the other installations, the medics. We have Munson Army Health Center, and trying to reach them and help them understand that we do have programs here like the Audie Murphy Association and different things. So that's kind of how we branch out, Sergeant Major.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Over to you, Sergeant Hunt.
Sergeant Major, yes. So one of our longest lasting partnerships is with Gilwauk's NCO Association that we have. We partner with them. Not only is Master Sergeant King here locally, she was the president last year, but she's also in that association. So she brings her NCOs over and we collaborate on community relations with them, sponsorship opportunities, etc. Our newest and most exciting coordination is with our AUSA, our Mid-Missouri Fort Leonard Wood AUSA chapter, and our young professionals. And recently we have been partnering with the NIA, the National Infantry Association. Those guys are just as great as well. And we come up with either new means to bring the community together or assist those in need in the community. We have done free fishing derbies throughout the year for kids, and everybody leaves with a prize. We weigh them. They can take the fish home. They can put them back. We do our 5K, 10K run where our sponsors come in. Our local bond that we have and our longest lasting build is with Bow and Barrel out here in St. Roberts, and American Family Insurance, Jones Investment, First Command. They all come out and support our events, and we collaborate with them on ways to improve and bulk up the opportunities we have. Last year, we were able to help feed 350 families a full Thanksgiving meal and turkeys, with the challenge that this year we were going to do 400, 450. And if it wasn't for our partnerships with those associations, we wouldn't be able to bulk up and assist those within our community as much as we would. Our biggest thing that we did last year in conjunction with our food drive was our St. Nick's benefit, where we were able to provide over 600 children with Christmas holiday presents that they might have not been able to get on their own through a vetting process through other associations and other units on post. And with that, that is how we build and we bring our partnerships together. So that's what we have been doing for the past year, Sergeant Major.
All right, great. Thank you. And yes, I personally know what we've been doing. So great job. Thank you. All right, over to you, Sergeant Anderson, please.
Yeah, I think I've said a few of it so far. The STEM program actually was a big blast for us, going out and with some of our high-speed Army medical equipment and teaching some of these high school students how to do first aid. We partner with a lot of museums in the area. We've got a mighty 88th Air Force Museum down the road here that we go and just help them do some cleaning and maintenance on their systems, things that otherwise they wouldn't be able to run their operation, just costs and stuff like that. We've done a fair bit with our JROTC programs. Usually they reach out to us for guest speakers for their balls, to help them with their drill and ceremonies. We like to send NCOs over there to help them prepare for their competitions. We've reached out to our division band and set up some music instructors for the local marching bands. It's really just a network of networks that we try to find ways that we can help give back to the community in any way that people can give back. With our AUSA, we've used a lot of their resources. They've got a national level amount of resources and speakers that can come in. So every other month, we try to bring someone in and make a day or 2 day event out of it, where we host a major event for the installation. Everybody's welcome, and then we try to do a smaller breakfast just with our association members and our VIPs in the next morning. Those have a great turnaround. I got to tour a JBC engineer factory with Sergeant Major retired Army of the Retired Daily, and that was a great opportunity for me to kind of learn a lot of things and thought processes that he put into his job and how he got to where he is. And then we've hosted Sergeant Major of the Army Grinston down here for speaking engagements as well. So trying to ride that balance and help use everyone's resources. I think Sergeant Hunt mentioned First Command as well. They're a great resource for us to combine efforts with. It's not one of us that accomplishes everything. We usually just use a little bit of everyone's resources. Recently, we had soldiers in quarantine for a few weeks before they had to go out to a Poland mission, and they're really stuck there with nothing to do. So we worked with AUSA and a few other groups to get some gift bags and hygiene kits and stuff like that out to those soldiers. So really just trying to find the need and then work with your local organizations to figure out who has the financial resources, who has the time, who has the access and placement, and making sure that soldiers are taken care of.
Absolutely. And I'll just add to that, because I agree. And you kept saying a couple things over and over, and AUSA was one of them. And so every program is important. It does their thing, but teaming up is probably one of the smartest things to do. Because as you know, let's say, for instance, at Fort Leavenworth, lots of shift workers. If you need a volunteer event, well, you're not going to get 20 NCOs from the Audie Murphy Association to go to an event to volunteer, but maybe you can get 10 and maybe 10 from boss, right? Or 5 from Audie Murphy, 5 from boss, and 10 from the Sergeant Majors Association, right? Because, one of the things that we did here on Fort Leonard Wood is the Sergeant Major Association here teamed up with the Audie Murphy Association for their Thanksgiving food drive, and they volunteered their time and a little bit of money too. So it's all about collaborating efforts and pulling resources together to get things done for the installation and take care of the community. So, all right. Well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Okay. All right. So I want to go ahead and talk about real quick. This is a very important question to me because obviously we've been talking a lot about what do we do for the community and the installation and stuff like that. But what does the Sergeant Audie Murphy Association do for our soldiers? So, and I'm going to start with you, Oliver, first, because I saw a post on Facebook recently and you talked about how, someone was, I think you said something to the effect of, someone said you couldn't bring morale back in your platoon or something like that, but you did, and this, that, and the other. And I got it. It's not attributed just because you have a medallion around your neck. I guarantee you that's not the reason. It's because who you are as a leader. But I'm sure it helped you. So tell me, how does being a Sergeant Audie Murphy member help your soldiers and benefit them?
Well, so how it benefits soldiers and my soldiers and those around me. So like I kind of said before, I mean, I think a question earlier is what's harder, the before or after process? The after process to me is easy because I was doing it before. I just now have a medallion that I put on my neck that looks cool when I go to, when I get to go to balls and stuff. Like the commitment and drive that I had before is the same. Just now I have so much knowledge that I had to pour into my brain that's there. So now instead of having to find these answers or not knowing, I know these answers, and so these problems are being solved, and I'm able to mentor a whole lot more effectively, a whole lot faster, a whole lot more expounding on all these issues to these soldiers. And one of the regulation, it specifically states that Audie Murphy members should be utilized to teach and mentor, for NCO classes and different things like that, teaching all realms of the NCO Corps on these things, because we become, what we be looked at as the subject matter experts on, doctrine of the Army. And so, and I think that all things stem from that. You have to start with doctrine. You have to know what we are as an organization. And so that's how we get back to our soldiers, is once we have a complete and utter picture. I mean, I was okay in knowing what, the operations process was and stuff like that. But a lot of that stuff just clicked for me at all spectrums of regulation and doctrine. And so I was able to pour that into my private inside of my platoon and teach my private what a mission command is. You know how awesome for a private is when he's able to tell other non-commissioned officers outside of my unit or other leaders like what mission command is and sounds smart, and they come back and they're like, oh, this is what mission command is, and nobody else knew this, but that was so cool. And so because I know, and I took the time to do that, so for me, that's what helps my platoon and those around me, is that because they see me doing it, there's no question they want to do it. It drives them to do the same thing. They see the livelihood, the pushing, and they see that kind of stuff. That's how, leaders are bred. That's how they're born. And so that's how we get back to the soldiers. We learn and we know those things. We're knowledgeable, and we're able to pour all those things that we learn, all those experiences. And it's not even the knowledge, like going to a board and getting, all these grueling questions and being wrong. I mean, there was multiple times that I was wrong, especially in those 3 times prior to going through the battalion board. I was wrong quite often. And so to me, like, I'm not only knowledgeable, but I can teach them in real time. Like, I got kicked out 3 times. You watched your platoon sergeant get kicked out. You can keep going back. It's okay. It's okay to fail. You know what I mean? And they see that, and they're not as scared anymore to go to a board and fail. They're not scared of it because they watched me do it and they see where I'm at. So it's more impactful than just knowing the regulation or just wearing the medallion. They see the process, whether you think they do or not. They're watching everything you do, and they're going to emulate it on depending on how passionate you are about it. So that's just how we get back to the.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. I agreed 100%. Well said. Thank you so much. Over to you, Sergeant Hunt, real quick.
Yeah, so I think that the Sergeant or the association and the process of going through the board helps our soldiers, or helps me help my soldiers, is I'm a little nervous on here, but I promise you, I'm able to articulate specific scenarios, situations, and regulations to my soldiers that they might not know. And if it wasn't for that elongated process that I had to go through and the regulations that I had to dig deep into and the scenarios that were thrown at me like crazy throughout the board process, I would not be the leader, the mentor that I see myself and that I know I am today without those processes. And for me, that helps me lead from the front, literally. I have put myself in that vulnerable position to admit that I don't know everything. I do have to resource things. I do need to make sure I know my left and right limits. And that's what the process is for. And for me, that has helped build my stamina, my confidence, my leadership capabilities. And in turn, I'm able to approach my soldiers in that same manner. And I'm able to build their confidence and their trust that I will help them through a process. It might not be me giving them the direct answers, because that's not what I believe an NCO, a leader, or a mentor should do. Is I will help guide you. I'll be there, but you need to figure out this process for yourself. Okay, you just read that in the regulation. What does that mean to you? How are you going to solve this problem that you have with a soldier? Okay, you just read it. Explain it to me. Use me as that example. And then they can in turn be able to counsel or talk to their soldier that they have this issue with, or that they're trying to help the soldier through. The association and the process is beneficial because we can use our resources within the association. The other members are medics, for example. If you need combat medic support, or if you need 88 mic support or train up for a deployment that you might not have that resource, being able to branch out and say, hey, can I sign for 6 radios so we can do an additional lane? Or, hey, our platoon is doing this, but we need this resource. So it's not just about getting to talk to other people one-on-one that makes it beneficial. It's being able to improve the life and the training environment that we give our soldiers by utilizing the other members within the association as well, Sergeant Major.
Perfectly said. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. Over to you, Sergeant Anderson.
Yeah, I think the obviously knowing the regulation on how to take care of my soldiers is great, but what benefited me more was just getting to know the other members on my installation. I'm a big trying not to reinvent the wheel myself, and I try to use battle buddies every chance I get just to help provide a better end state to my soldiers. I've got Audie Murphy members that run DFACs. I've got Audie Murphy members in IG, motor pools, and everywhere else. And it's always that that phone number you can pick up and call when everything else is going south. You've got a brother or sister in the association to call, and you know they're going to help you take care of soldiers because you do the same for them. So really just being able to pull those strings and make things happen seemingly miraculously, but it's really a lot of hard work by a lot of hard NCOs, but it's a better end state of training events and knowledge base for our soldiers.
Well, you said something that rang true. So, one of the things, a lot of people will say, wow, the Sergeant Major network is so powerful, and, you guys can make things happen and just this, that, and the other. And yes, we can. But you know what the premise behind that power is networking. It's the relationships that we build. And it's no different than being a part of this association and being on an installation and saying, hey, does anybody work at a DFAC? I need this. Or does anybody work in G4? I need a question on this. And it's that network of people that you can make things happen almost instantaneously. And so the NCOs and soldiers and officers around me, they know I preach RRP, relationships, reputation, and your performance. And the relationship piece is just one of those extra things. So that's awesome. Well, thanks so much for that. I appreciate that. Okay, we're nearing on an hour and a half, and it's time to get going. I know there's people that want to get going. So real quick, I want to do some closing comments. So I'm going to go ahead and go around the horn. I'll start with Oliver and then go to Hunt and then Anderson, but we'll go ahead and let you say your last few closing comments and before I do my closeout. So just to you, Sergeant Oliver, please.
So I appreciate Sergeant Major. So my closing comments, I guess what I would say is if you're one of those people out there watching, I'm assuming a lot of people are tuning in that want to know about the process. And I would tell you that, I was extremely nervous starting the process. Extremely nervous, probably one of the most nervous things I've done in the Army. And I can tell you, looking back, I'm 100% glad I did it. So if you're one of those people, you're on the fence about it, you're not sure, you're nervous, you're worried about a packet or not knowing something in the regulation, just go. Just go. You're going to not know something. I can tell you right now, if your boards are anything like mine, it don't matter how good you are, you're going to not know something. So you might as well just go through it, because at the end of the day, it's going to be one of the most rewarding things that you do. So if you're on the fence, you're thinking about it, you think maybe you're not knowledgeable enough, just go. Worst thing that's going to happen is you're not going to get it and you can go back. But at least you got the experience, and at least you know what you're looking at the next time. And just keep doing it. And each time you're going to get better. And if you go 10 times, do it 10 times. But at the end of the day, it's going to make you better, and it's going to help you, and it's going to help all those around you. That's my closing comments, Sergeant Major. I appreciate it.
Well said. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Sergeant Hunt?
Yes, Sergeant Major. So one of my biggest things is going back to the terrain walk, and that is probably the best resource for me personally. And you get that one-on-one factor with the individuals that are at that facility. And we all know that not everybody learns the same way. So you have a regulation in front of you, but that doesn't mean what you read actually correlates in your brain for you to function and successfully answer a random scenario question. Going to a facility, actually pretending there's a financial issue, go to your finance office, say, hey, I don't have money, or we have a huge debt. Have them walk through that paperwork with you, so that way you actually have the process embedded in your brain. Don't just read a regulation if there is a facility that correlates with that regulation. Experience it yourself. Review what that process is, so that way you can articulate what it is you learned about that facility in front of board members. Because as we've all said, your nerves are going to get up. And if you are that individual that does get nervous through boards, but you're a very good speaker, going through the facilities and actually talking one-on-one and taking the time, whether it's one a week or one every other week, depending on when your board process is, take that time. Learn what they do at that facility so your answers articulate and you are a best representation of yourself. Because stumbling is not one of the things that you want to do. And most of the time, it's just nerves. It's not that you don't know what is being asked of you and you can't answer it. It's because you're nervous. So if you just calm down, you're just talking to normal people. Yes, they might have rank, but they're still people. They've been where you've been, not just in that board, but as a leader trying to develop and assist soldiers and family members and even the community. Just take that time. And the terrain walk is probably the biggest things that I have a recommendation for those that are going to the board soon at whatever installation you're in. On behalf of the Fort Leonard Wood Ozark Region chapter, we wish you the best of luck, and we wish everyone.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And then also, too, I would say this. There was a question earlier on that I didn't get to from Sergeant Major Halliburton, but he asked, what are the benefits of being a part of the association before you actually go to the board? And real quick to answer that question, Mark, is it's the answer to that. It's really about, you can learn a lot from the fellow Sergeant Audie Murphy members and the board. They'll want to help you. They're going to want to help you be successful. So you, by going to meetings, going to functions, doing things with the association or the club, you're just going to be much better off for it. So I highly encourage you, if you're interested, find the president, find a member, find somebody, and say, hey, I want to be a part of something bigger than myself. How can I do this? And then go from there. So, okay, great. Thanks, Sergeant Hunt. Appreciate it. Over to you, Sergeant Anderson.
Hey, Sergeant Major, I appreciate having me on tonight. Ultimately, the Audie Murphy Association and the award to me is just a chance to excel. It's open from Corporal to E8 now on the Force Comm side, so start early. It's never too late. Keep on trying. The process of becoming a member will make you a fantastic NCO, and the brotherhood, sisterhood of being a member in the association will help you take care of soldiers. So if you're one of those who knows the Army is for you, you want to take care of soldiers, figure out the process. It's going to be hard. It's going to be staggering at times for a good reason. We want to make sure that those NCOs that go out there and represent and take care of soldiers are taken care of to the best of our everyone's abilities. So start early, continue on, even if it's late, like me as a first sergeant I went through. Never too late to try your merit and be a good NCO. Over.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Well, unfortunately, the time has come to an end. It's so hard to believe how an hour and a half can just breeze through, especially when you're talking about something so passionate. So again, to the 3 panel members, there are some comments that are popping up and they're still continuing to pop up about thanking you for the great job that you did. And I really want to thank you because you laid your heart and soul out, and it is quite evident why you're the presidents of your Sergeant Audie Murphy Association for your installation, because you're very passionate about what you do and what you believe in and what this program is about. And I am too. And until the day, well, you know what, not even when I retire, because I'm going to continue to give back to this organization that has given back so much to me since 2001. And I truly believe, and I hope to one day live up to the values of what the Sergeant Audie Murphy Club is about. All right, real quick in closing, I want to talk about 2 things. Very excited to announce, most of you that follow my page on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook know that the schedule was released last night. Our next show that we're going to have is on 3 June. I'm going to have a one-on-one candid conversation with Sergeant Major of the Army, retired Dan Daly, who is now the NCO and Soldier Programs Vice President for AUSA. I'm extremely excited. He's one of my mentors, and I'm extremely excited to have him on BTB for some little candid talk. So please tune in for that. And then, hot off the press, just basically scheduled yesterday, Command Sergeant Major Jimmy Sellers, one of my idols and one of the sergeant majors that I look up to, he's the commandant for the Non-Commissioned Officers Leadership Center of Excellence and USASMA. Commandant out there, and we're going to have Bill and Sergeant Major Howell on as well, and we're going to talk all things that's going on at the Fort Bliss. We're going to talk BLC, MLC. We're going to talk about the Sergeant's Major Academy. So if you are a student that's getting ready to go here for class 71, I think is what they're on now. Boy, am I getting old. You're going to want to tune in because we're going to be able to give you fresh hand information, and that's going to be on 17 June. So you're not going to want to miss that. So it's going to be a jam-packed evening, and I think that one might run over an hour and a half as well because it's going to be full of information. So again, thanks again to the panel members, but really thanks to all those that are watching. This broadcast was set up as a way for us to learn from each other and to bring on panel members and have great discussions. So all those that participated, asked questions, had dialogue, thank you so much for all that you do. And don't forget, this is Memorial Day weekend. Let's not forget those that made the ultimate sacrifice for the freedoms that we're able to enjoy each and every day. God rest their soul, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening. Take care.